Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's Altcoin Bible, one of my favorite episodes of the week. Today, we're going to look at a couple of cryptos, which, look, we've covered one or two every now and then. I'm adding a new one in today, Illuvium. I'm going to look at Cherry Ripe One to Watch and also a danger zone. Some really, really exciting moves happening in certain cryptos in this market. So everything is a bit flat, if not downtrending, as Bitcoin, is trying to find that floor. But again, some narratives are moving, which is really, really fascinating. And it could be also due to fundamental factors. So just keep that in mind. I'm still a little bit bearish here in terms of Bitcoin. Just looking for that little bit of pullback, bit further to give us that liquidity drive to move higher, especially with traditional markets having a bit of trouble with the dollar rising and also some yields getting a bit out of control. So look, lots happening, but there's always money to be made in these markets. Let me crack straight into my first chart, and that is a BNB danger zone. So why this is my danger zone? Well, it's a couple of factors, and sometimes I bring it up for BNB because it is so important. We had a Forbes article come out with a lot of FUD, so fear, uncertainty, and doubt around, excuse me, Binance's practices behind the scenes. How it was similar to FTX, how they were commingling assets and essentially doing what they want with customers' assets without having it back one-to-one at certain points, speculating on different things that they're doing, which really isn't a positive. And we're seeing it a little bit in price action. BNB is just really getting the pull to the downside. So I wanted to highlight that as a narrative. And also BNB is really, really close to key psychological whole number support. So look, people may disagree with this, but whenever we are close to a whole number, like say 300 here, which BNB is right on the precipice of, it either acts as resistance or support, because these markets are all psychology based. All these candles, green and red, sellers and buyers, it's all sentiment, it's all buyers. Someone's finding value, someone's not, it's all back and forth. So this 300 point is crucial in my eyes. Just because it is so important as you just look back, and I'll bring up the volume profile as well, just to potentially highlight that the volume is there. Excuse me, let me get rid of the MACD. Don't really need that right now. Get the visible range, and you can just see how important this area is for BNB to hold. Now, there is no doubt in my mind that there is some manipulation going on to try and hold BNB at a higher level, maybe at 300, try and keep, I guess, the legitimacy of the coin a bit higher. You can dive into that a little bit more, of course. Look, it's been grinding up ever since, FTX lows, Luna, FTX. So each one having a pretty severe impact on the coin, but didn't make new lower lows. So that is very, very interesting. But in the shorter term, which is what I'm looking at here, I really didn't like this here. So we had a peak here. That was the first peak on the RSI. Then we had BNB make a second high. So a higher high from the last. But what's happening on the RSI? Bulls are losing momentum. Very, very clearly, it's downtrending. You can see there. So this is the line for me that it needs to break. For me to turn bullish on BNB again, I want to see this crack this RSI line, showing some momentum for bulls. And that would essentially line up with price in terms of what we want to see. Because you see here, it's just constantly grinding lower and lower. All of these highs are just lower than the last, and it is falling into this descending triangle. I'd be very wary on BNB. And this is why it's my danger zone. Breaks that 300 mark. It's coming down to 288 and maybe a bit lower. There's a tremendous amount of volume here. So I'm fairly objective that BNB should bounce in this area, but it's still my danger zone. It is a very clear drop here that it could have if it clears that 300 area. But there are areas where you would get very, very interested in BNB if you believe in the longer term potential of the coin. So, and I know I do, as long as Binance stays upright, it is a tremendous investment, or at least it has a tremendous investment thesis behind it. But this area here, just got to be so careful. And if we look over here for potentially discount buys, you can draw the Fibonacci retracement tool from, say, the swing low to the swing high over a longer period of time. So this is on the daily, and you can see those areas of support. And for me, this is just huge confluent area of support, about 293. Again, I'd be very surprised if it cracks that and falls to that 21. Is it the 21 or the 200? It's the 200-day moving average. So this area in here, these two lines are going to provide so much support to BNB in this area that it should bounce from that, but it doesn't mean it's not going to break down and try and create a new trend here. So you just got to be mindful of that. Further down, if it breaks that 200, it's gonzo in terms of it's falling down this volume gap here, probably hitting 277, I don't know if it gets down to 263 unless there's a big catalyst or event, but the pressure's onto the downside. All right, so that's my danger zone, my cherry ripe of the week. Well, we're going back to AI. Now, you could argue that, the larger meat, no, I wouldn't actually say that. I'd say that the move is clearly happening. You've missed the start of the move, but now is the next rise up, as long as everything holds true in terms of Bitcoin looking okay and things stabilizing. But AGIX, so Singularity Coin, has been consolidating in this area after this initial pump. So it's just been grinding into this triangle, this wedge, whatever you want to call it, pennant, and it's broken out here, and very, very similar to what it did over here before it had the next massive rise up. So let me just quickly draw that so everyone can see, and then blast up. Now, these kind of patterns are very interesting because when they do have the breakout, you almost don't want to buy this first candle in most instances, unless there's a really strong indicator that it, you really want to piggyback on here to go higher. Generally, you want to wait for the pullback and potentially a retest of some fib levels on this massive breakout candle. And I'll just quickly draw maybe the fib from, well, let's say that low to the high there. These kind of areas you get very, very interesting. So 0.4851. If this is a new up, which clearly looks like the move is going higher, you'd buy in these areas, and then you'd look to take profit off, and let's say 0.67, and then you could go even higher there. So as well, another tool that is quite useful if you're in no man's land, like right now, AGIX, I don't believe there's any price action previous above this area. I could be wrong, but let's just have a look at the trend-based Fibonacci extension. So let's go from the base of the move to the high, and then draw it back over as if it was a full retracement to the low here. And you can just see this is where numbers do line up. And for me, it is pretty obvious that this move, you essentially want to double the height of the pattern. In most cases, that's a rough guide for me. When I look at this pattern in terms of where I think it could go, if you don't have, say, prior resistance to look at, the 1.618 is just a really nice magnet for a lot of coins when they break out of patterns like this. But if you're looking to front run, potentially a lot of selling that's going to come in these areas up here, and you look over here at what price level this kind of hits at, it's above $1. That is going to be a massive psychological barrier for a crypto token. So you could look to kind of front run it around that 96, 94 area. But look, totally up to you. Momentum indicators are looking really nice for AGIX on the daily, especially seeing this breakout here. So it's just running into some resistance at 0.53. So you could wait for the breakout, come back, test that as support, then make that move higher. But look, these momentum indicators are looking, again, really, really nice on the daily. So it is my cherry ripe, but do be careful in bear markets. Sometimes cryptos can do this, and it just catches a lot of people FOMOing into these areas. And this could just be a liquidity drive into there before sellers really come in and drop this lower. So you really want to be still quite tight with your stop losses if you're looking at this. Now, one to watch for this week. It's a popular one in some of our groups, but Illuvium, ILV. It is, over the daily, consolidating into this really beautiful triangle after having this epic run up from the lows. So that's 185% move, and it's compressing into this. We're almost at the apex of the triangle, almost 75% of the way through, if not there already. Momentum indicators starting to tick up, look really nice. RSI curling up, momentum curling up, stock RSI curling up. We've also got the MACD flashing these paler candles, signaling that we're turning in momentum and heading towards the green. So this, to me, looks pretty darn good, but you really want to wait for these breakers. It's one to watch. And if it does break out, it's heading towards 100, probably a 40% move in Illuvium. I think there's a fundamental catalyst as well behind this. So a few things lining up, but this is a gaming token. So yeah, do your research on this. And I could draw the fib extension just quickly, just to give you an idea of where these can go. And it's pretty debatable. I probably should have drawn it from here, but for me, if you're looking at the longer term breakthrough, that's probably about where a longer term move could go. So 180 before it really starts to correct hard. But yeah, definitely one to watch on Illuvium. And in terms of buying these patterns, you really do want to wait for them to really chug through, because we wouldn't know that this really is a full triangle until we had this retest down here. So if you were around here and just pretend these candles on the right aren't there, you see this trend line that it's trying to break through, you'd kind of surmise that if this is a triangle, it's going to come back down and test these lows in this area to form that triangle, and you could buy along here. Also in here is now a reasonably good spot, because this is a triangle and it's trying to break up. if it, runs into resistance here and just falls through the floor, so if it does this kind of movement, you'd have your stops like everyone else lined there. But then there's that issue where market makers could see that and they want to come back down for one last liquidity drive and then bounce it up out like that. So there's no perfect way to play it, but there are safer ways to play it. Sometimes you just have to risk a little to make a little, and that's kind of how it looks. But right now, this is a definite one to watch. So some cryptos are looking really, really exciting. Let's just hope Bitcoin and Ethereum hold up reasonably well in this phase. But apart from that, hope you've enjoyed this episode, guys. We'll catch you again for our next one. Bye.